Good evening, welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Leeson here at today's top stories. The UK will send much needed mobile oxygen generation units to India. Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party is to begin the new leadership process after Arlene Foster resigns. And an EU report says Russia and China are systematically seeking to sow mistrust in Western vaccines. The UK will provide ongoing support to India in its fight against the CCP virus. The government is sending more vital oxygen equipment to the country.
Britain will provide India with 3 mobile oxygen generation units to supply the country's battle against the second wave of CCP virus infections. Each unit is capable of producing 500 litres of oxygen per minute, enough for 50 people to use at a time.
Well, the UK has been one of the leading donors to COVAX, £548 million we've allocated as part of our £1.3 billion COVID response package. But what we've been told is at the moment what India needs as a priority is the ability to produce oxygen.
The shipping container-sized factories will be sent from surplus stocks in Northern Ireland. Britain is sending 700 items of medical equipment to India, and the first shipment arrived on Tuesday.
Our Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister will be speaking in the next few days, and we will continue to liaise with India to find out what they need and what we can do to provide ongoing support as they fight this terrible disease.
India reported nearly 380,000 new cases and over 3,600 deaths on Thursday, another daily record. The country's total cases passed 18 million. On the UK side, the government said on Wednesday it will buy 60 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines for the booster programme later this year.
We have been working on a programme of booster shots, again, for over a year now. And we've backed some of the only clinical trials in the world looking specifically at booster shots.
Hancock says the biggest risk to Britain's vaccine rollout so far was a new variant of the virus. Britain has now ordered a total of 100 million doses of Pfizer vaccine, which is one of the 3 COVID-19 shots being rolled out in the country at the moment.
Following a party revolt, DUP leader Arlene Foster announced yesterday she'll be stepping down. Now, the search for her successor has begun.
Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party begins the process of finding a new leader after Arlene Foster resigned on Wednesday. Foster said she will stand down as the party leader on the 28th of May and as First Minister at the end of June.
It has been the privilege of my life to serve the people of Northern Ireland as their First Minister and, of course, to represent my home constituency of Fermanagh and South Tyrone.
The 50-year-old Foster first entered the Assembly in 2003 and became the DUP leader unchallenged in 2015. She's the first female DUP leader and the first female minister.
And as I prepare to depart the political stage, it is my view that if Northern Ireland is to prosper, then it will only do so built on the foundations of successful and durable devolution. That will require continued hard work and real determination and courage on all sides.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson thanks Arlene Foster for her dedication to the people of Northern Ireland over many years. Foster's announcement comes 24 hours after DUP colleagues, unhappy with her leadership, moved against her. The majority of senior elected representatives signed a letter of no confidence. Discontentment at the DUP's Brexit strategy was a major factor in the revolt. Party rank and file blamed her for the Irish Sea border. It's not clear whether there will be more than one candidate vying for the party's top job. The contest will involve a very small electorate. Only the party's 35 MLAs and MPs will get a vote. Potential successors are MPs Sir Geoffrey Donaldson and Gavin Robinson, both viewed as moderates, and the more hardline Stormont Agricultural Minister, Edwin Poots. There is some speculation that when Foster does depart, the twin roles she currently occupies could be split.
MPs are urging the government to take a pragmatic approach in discussions with the EU over non-tariff barriers for small seafood and meat export businesses. A new report says otherwise these businesses may relocate to the EU.
A legislative committee is expressing the concerns of exporters of fresh and live seafood and meat shipment to the EU, in particular, small and medium-sized businesses. In its report, the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee says the barriers these businesses face could render them unviable, and factories and jobs may relocate to the EU. It says red tape on British businesses selling their products abroad are not matched by restrictions on the EU selling their products in the UK. Controls on EU seafood and meat imports will not commence until the 1st of October 2021, and checks at the border are to commence from the 1st of January the following year. Chair of the EFRA Select Committee, MP Neil Parish says the playing field is not even. The committee's report calls on the government to adhere to a new timetable to introduce import checks, as well as provide help to small meat and seafood businesses. The EFRA committee chair said it must be pragmatic in seeking an agreement with the EU to reduce the red tape that harms both sides, and in the meantime, crack on with giving practical support to small British businesses to sell their produce abroad.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock received his first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine on Thursday at a vaccination centre in London. He got the AstraZeneca jab, which was administered by Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England, Jonathan Van Tam.
You're not going to bleed on me.
All done. Fantastic. That is
Please remember to come back in 12 weeks.
12 weeks' time. I've got it booked in already.
Good.
Is it right what the Queen said? It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt a bit, just like the Queen said. Barely a scratch.
Good.
Thank you, JVT.
Hancock said he was very excited when he was called for the jab. The Health Secretary announced earlier this week that COVID-19 vaccines are now being offered to people aged 42 or over in England. Nearly 34 million people in the UK have received the first dose of a vaccine. Hancock encourages everyone to take up the offer. And in other news, an EU report says Russia and China is mobilizing its state media and social media accounts to fully engage in vaccine diplomacy. The two countries are promoting their own vaccines, while at the same time demoting Western vaccines.
An EU report says Russian and Chinese media are systematically seeking to sow mistrust in Western COVID-19 vaccines. The European External Action Service's special report says, from December to April, the two countries' state media outlets made unfounded links between jabs and the deaths in Europe. The report says the two countries pushed fake news online in multiple languages, sensationalizing vaccine safety concerns and promoted their own vaccines as superior. In its effort to limit the spread of fake news, the EU works with Google, Facebook, Twitter and Microsoft. This latest disinformation report says that since the beginning of this year, state-sponsored disinformation intensified, and that vaccine diplomacy has fully replaced mask diplomacy. It adds that Russia and China combine vaccine diplomacy with disinformation and manipulation efforts to undermine trust in Western-made vaccines, EU institutions, and Western European vaccination strategies. The report found that Russia uses a whole-of-government approach to promote its Sputnik V vaccine with its state authorities, state companies and state mass media in almost daily intervention. The report cited 100 Russian examples this year. The report found that China continues to promote its vaccines as a global public good, emphasizing its accessibility and stable supply as more suitable for developing countries, while at the same time China's state-controlled channels show negative framing of Western response to the pandemic and misleading narratives to sow doubt about the safety of Western vaccines and the origin of the virus. Chinese media and officials have widely promoted the supply and planned production of Chinese vaccines in Serbia, which reflects the country's important role in promoting China's vaccine diplomacy.
Uber plans to sign up 20,000 more drivers in Britain. That's as the economy has started to open up. The Silicon Valley firm is already seeing more than 50% increase in trips as restaurants are now open for outdoor dining. More pandemic restrictions will be eased over the next few weeks. In March, Uber gave its existing 70,000 drivers workers' rights, including the minimum wage. That was after it lost a Supreme Court case. And in other news, car production in the UK is increasing for the first time in 18 months. A motor trade body says it's a major step forward. NTD's Patrick Hayden takes a look.
The number of cars being built in the UK is increasing for the first time in 18 months. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, or SMMT, says more than 115,000 cars were built in March. That's up 46% compared to a year ago. In March 2020, many factories were closed and production fell to its lowest level since 1984. In March, exports were all up. To the EU, nearly 34% up, to the US more than 36% up, and to Asia more than 54% up. More than half of the exports for the month went to the EU. Electric and semi-electric vehicles amount to a fifth of cars built. That's nearly 14% up from a year ago. SMMT says more than £11 billion of production was lost over the last year. It says the UK manufacturers are now having to pick up the cost of new trade agreements with the EU. SMMT also says manufacturing still struggles with the global shortage of semiconductors. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Children's reading skills improved during lockdowns over the last year. Children's reading skills improved during lockdowns over the last year. An annual report titled "What Kids Are Reading" looks at the reading habits of 1.1 million school kids. The report was carried out by the University of Dundee and Renaissance UK, an education assessor. They found many primary school children are picking up more challenging books for their age. They suggested changes due to lockdown. The same shift has not happened for secondary school pupils, however, who are reading at the level of upper primary school kids. Overall, however, children are reading fewer books, 1/5 down on last year.
German authorities are now targeting the country's biggest lockdown skeptic movement. Germany's domestic intelligence agency said on Wednesday that it will start observing part of the Querdenken movement. Querdenken, meaning lateral thinking, is one of the groups that organises anti-lockdown demonstrations across Germany, including a large one in Berlin last summer. Last week, Parliament passed legislation that will automatically lead to curfews and closures of retail shops and schools if infection rates reach a certain level. The movement draws from a wide spectrum of people who see the lockdown measures as a disproportionate infringement on liberty and basic rights. Germany's Interior Minister said on Wednesday, right-wing extremists are increasingly trying to hijack the movement.
Especially now in these heated times, which are going to get a bit, let's say, more emotional. In the election campaign, it's a matter of course to protect a constitutional state and its population.
He said anyone protesting peacefully against the government's policies had the right to do so, but added, whenever violence is involved, the authorities will show zero tolerance. The intelligence agency created a new unit called Delegitimization of the State, relevant to the protection of the Constitution, to monitor lockdown skeptics. Ralph Ludwig, a lawyer linked with the Querdenken, said the unit's name is somewhat apt. However, their protests are not about challenging the state, but the government's policies. He told a German newspaper, by protesting the current restrictions on civil liberties, we don't acknowledge those in power, because in our view they are not abiding by the law and the constitution. He compares Querdenken with East Germany's peaceful revolution. In 1989, protesters also rejected the communist regime since it did not abide by their constitution.
Still to come, we look back at US President Joe Biden's first 100 days in office. Find out more after the break.